Welcome to Release Readiness Live. My name is Ayori Selassie, and I'll be your host as we walk through the latest feature enhancements for the Summer 18 release. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. We've been here all week covering the latest features across all the clouds, and today we're focused on platform. So, what I love about Release Readiness Live is that no matter what type of trailblazer you are, whether this is your very first release or if you've already started testing out features in your sandbox, this show is perfect for you because our product managers are here to answer all your questions. So where do you go to ask those questions? To answer that, I'd love to welcome our community rock star, Elna Miller.
Thanks, Ayori. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Actually, I love this session today because it really literally has something for everyone. I mean, whether you're a user, an admin, or a developer, there's definitely some good meaty stuff in here for you. So pay close attention and also post your questions and shout outs in either Twitter or the Release Readiness Trailblazers group in the community. Use the hashtag Salesforce Live and keep those meaty questions in the community because we can really start having a conversation after the webcast because we may not get to all of your questions on the air. We'll try. But afterwards, we're going to circle back in the community and answer as many as we can and actually get to all of them. But we love the shout outs on Twitter as well. And Ayori, I can't wait to see what we have today.
Awesome. So today, our product managers are going to be covering and giving you a sneak peek into the roadmap. And with that in mind, we will be making some forward-looking statements. So please make your purchasing decisions based on what is currently available in the product. This broadcast will be recorded so you can rewatch it at any time and share it with your friends. And without further ado, let's welcome our product managers.
Hi, I'm Jeff Davis, and I'll be talking about Lightning Experience.
Hey, I'm Vin Adala. I'll be talking about Lightning adoption and how you can get quickly up and running in Lightning.
And I'm Jason Teller, and I'm going to be talking to you about Lightning Flow today.
And I'm Matt Yeo. I'm going to be talking to you about Salesforce surveys.
All right, great. So let's jump right in. First of all, thank you all very much for joining us today. I'm really excited to talk to you about everything that the Lightning Experience platform teams have been working on for Summer 18. As you can see, we have a laundry list of features, closing classic gaps, adding new Lightning-only functionality, and we can't possibly cover it all. So I want to spend our time focusing on demos, and we're going to demo these top 5 features. So without further ado, let's just see this in action. Here we have a Summer 18 org. Last release, we brought you customization of global navigation. Huge hit. In this release, we've made it even better. When I come up here to edit my tabs, I have a new More Items button. I can click this button and I can add favorites, or I can also add any of my other items that I have access to. So it makes finding your items super easy. You can browse right through, or you can even search for them. Select a couple and add those 2 navigation items. You can drag them around just like you could before and save those in your tab set. But we did something else that I think is super slick. You can drag and drop your tabs around the nav bar to reorder them. So I'm going to click on groups and drag it to the left. And you see, we reordered the tabs right there and it saves automatically. So you can really customize your tabs in a whole new way. Another piece of feedback that we've heard from the community is the ability to inline edit dependent pick lists. So we listened, and this is something that we are releasing in the summer. So for example, say I'm an airline ticket agent, and this is an airline record. I need to edit my fare class from first to economy, and then I save that. Whoops. This field has some dependent pick lists that are part of the fare class, but I didn't know that. Now in Lightning, we highlight those. So I can scroll down the page, and now I can make my other choices that I wasn't really aware of before. I can save that, the record updates appropriately. If you noticed, when we do open up the edit, we have a new link here, View All Dependencies. So whenever you have a dependent pick list, you can just click this link and it opens up the whole entire tree of pick lists in one modal. So now as you adjust this pick list, you can change your dependencies as well and it all works right in line. We'll save that, and it's updated. But of course, we know that you use dependent pick lists in other methods and in other views. So what about Kanban? Here, we'll view our airline tickets in a Kanban view. And I know that this business class upgrade is now closed won. So I'll drag it over to closed won and drop it. And now we get our dependency pop-up. So we'll choose the reason that we won the deal. In this case, we had excellent service. So we'll pick service, we'll click done, and now we've updated that record based on status and filled in the required fields. Before summer 18, you couldn't have done this. So this really helps with productivity and efficiency. While we're on the topic of list views, we've also made big strides in closing a really key gap. And that gap is what we call filter scopes. Filter scopes are predefined filters that you have in Classic today, like My Teams, Campaigns, Queues, or My Teams territories. These didn't exist in Lightning until this release. So now I can come over and open up my filter panel here on my leads list view. And I want to see only leads that are owned by a specific queue. So I'll select queue owned leads, my inside sales queue, click done, and click save. And now you see our list only reflects leads that are owned by that inside sales queue. Another key benefit of these filter scopes are campaigns. So let's go back. I want to see all leads, but only leads that are part of this application networking promotions campaign. I'll select that campaign, click done, and save. And now I get records that are owned by anyone, but are part of a specific marketing campaign. Again, in Lightning, you could always view these lists, but now you can create them and you can modify filters. This opens up a huge piece of functionality and closes a really big gap. We're very excited about this. And finally, we can't forget about Console. We've made some really great enhancements to Console. So I'll just toggle over here to the Sales Console. And for those of you that use Console, this should look very, very familiar. For those of you who haven't used Console yet, we really encourage you to do so. It's a really efficient and productive way to work. So I'm here in a split view with my records on the side, or with my list of records on the side. I'll click one to open it in a workspace tab. You can also click related records, which will open up here in a sub-tab. And I'll actually show you my URL bar. Here in the workspace tab, we have a URL. You can copy and paste this, share it with a colleague to navigate to the parent record of that workspace tab. What we've added in Summer 18 is the ability to share links of the sub-tab. Notice how that URL changed. So I can copy that link, open in a new tab, share it with a colleague, go to this URL, it opens up the console to that workspace tab and then down to the sub-tab. So this really enhances collaboration and productivity, and it's a feature that a lot of customers were asking for, and we're super happy to have delivered it. So that is what we had for our demos. Now let's take a sneak peek at the roadmap. So in Console, just like standard navigation, you're going to be able to personalize your navigation bar, and we're also focusing on VF overrides. On the record side, we're going to introduce two big gaps to close with Classic: manual sharing and mass change owner. On the list views and related list side, we're going to close one of our final gaps, sharing lists with groups, and we're adding a new Lightning-only feature, search in lists. We're also working to enhance related lists to show all 10 columns on record home previews. And finally, for our overall experience UI, we gave you org theming a few releases ago. Now we're going to give you app level theming, so different apps can be themed differently with images and colors. And finally, we're focusing on component personalization. So now end users will have the ability to tweak their own experiences to really customize that for themselves. These are all upcoming, and they're all things that we're really excited about.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. That was fantastic.
Great.
I wonder what our community has to say. Are there any questions out there about all these amazing Lightning features?
Well, I tell you what, you're going to be feeling the love in about a second when I tell you about all the shout outs that are coming through right now. People are just blown away. In particular, I just want to welcome Randy back, who's relaxing in her very sunny backyard. Looks like a great place to watch Release Readiness live. She and Cheryl are both loving the view all dependencies. That really rocks. Squire says, woot, filter scopes and lightning. Christopher says, I cannot tweet my praise fast enough before the next feature is discussed. Woohoo! Click and drag tab reordering, the list view scopes, dependent pick list modal windows. Holy smokes. So there you have it. I think a couple people are a little bit happy out there. So can't wait to see you trying these and coming up with all sorts of use cases for them. Now to the questions. Randy has a question about the dependent pick list. On the Kanban, does it work on all object Kanbans or just on the opportunity?
It'll work on all object Kanbans that are supported by the object. So the answer is yes.
Is it Kanban or Kanban? That's the debate we're having here.
That's the debate.
We can vote on it in the community. I'll put a poll up. So Mark is asking, are there any plans for other types of dependent fields beyond pick lists? Like, for example, dependent text field came up. You know, that would be a great change, he says.
We haven't heard that, but I'll definitely talk to the team about different use cases for that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, we're seeing some more GIFs coming up. Cheryl's very excited about the roadmap. Sales Console and Lightning is so awesome. Yeah, just everybody's just having a ball out there. So keep the questions coming in, and we'll see if we get more a little bit later. We'll circle back. But I think we should go ahead and move on to the next section.
Awesome. So Vin, you've got some more Lightning stuff to share as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, Jeff, I absolutely love the URL feature. It makes collaboration so much easier. What I'm going to talk to you about is how you can take advantage of these features. And we have something called a Lightning Transition Toolkit. Won't go through everything, but here I'll highlight a few things around the readiness checking and a new tool that we're releasing called Lightning Experience Configuration Converter. You definitely want to check out the demo for that, which I'll be doing. So one of the areas that I get quite a bit of feedback about is when customers want to transition from Classic to Lightning to take advantage of some of the features that Jeff showed and some of the hundreds of features that are only available in Lightning. We see that JavaScript buttons are not supported in Lightning, and for good reasons. Two primary reasons being that JavaScript buttons, when not written properly, pose security challenges, and also, as a product team, when we go to introduce new features, we're not always sure about how these JavaScript buttons are implemented, so they could result in incompatible changes. So for those reasons, we built Locker Service from the ground up in Lightning and ensures that everything that you do and everything we do in Lightning meets the strictest of security standards. So when we look out at how JavaScript buttons are used, we see that they're very common. There's about 2 million JavaScript buttons out there in active orgs. And this is a problem that we want to solve. This is a problem that we want to help you transition out of to alternatives that work in Lightning. So when we look at this, there are a number of things that we see very commonly that are used and done with JavaScript buttons. And for those, what we've built is called the Lightning Experience Configuration Converter. It's a tool that you may have seen when we demoed it at Trailhead DX. There's a lot of buzz around this. I get questions about this every day. When is it releasing? When is it releasing? I'm excited to tell you that it's going to be released tomorrow. You're going to want to keep an eye out on the developer and the admin blogs, and on the community Trailblazer community groups as well, where we'll go ahead and announce the URL for this. So it's almost here. The wait is pretty short. And I'll go through more about what this does right in the demo. And for other advanced use cases, what we have is we have a GitHub repository. You should see a bit.ly link below. So after this session, when you go follow that, you'll see 9 most common advanced use cases for JavaScript buttons that we've written as open source Lightning component actions for you to build off of. So if you're doing, we're providing multiple tools here, either through the Lightning Experience Configuration Converter or through this GitHub repository, which contains, again, 9 sample components for the advanced use cases. And I'll give you a demo of that. Some of them are when we look at and talk to customers about how they're using JavaScript buttons, client-side validation. We have a component for that. You don't have to write that code. All different types of dialogues we see with JavaScript buttons. You see on the screen there, dialogues with multiple options, confirmation dialogues. All those are included, including things related to user interfaces such as showing toast messages and things like that. So a lot is happening. And what I want to do is I want to jump to the demo here. So let's switch to my demo machine. And what you're seeing here is, I've run the readiness report on my org. And the readiness report is great. It's often the first step that you want to do and the first tool that you want to use in the transition toolkit to give you a sense of what's going to work great and what you need to work on. So one area that I'm going to focus on is JavaScript buttons and links. As we talked about, they're not supported in Lightning for good reasons. So here, this report gives me a list of all the JavaScript buttons and the user impact, meaning when were they last used and how often are they used. And towards the bottom, you see that we don't have user impact, meaning in the last 90 days when we scan this, nobody used it, but the top 4 buttons do have usage. So these are maybe what we want to target. So what I'm going to first show you is the GitHub repository that I talked about earlier. It's called the Lex Components Bundle, and we put in here 9 components. And you can either clone this if you're familiar with cloning GitHub repository, or you have this click here to install where you can install it as an unmanaged package into your sandbox or developer org. And we give you very detailed information about what each of these components do. For example, if we look at number 7, pro bono opportunity, the use case that we're trying to solve with this is around dialogues. We give you a description. We even give you all the files, the component file and the JavaScript controller file that make this component work. Of course, it's not going to be completely plug and play. We expect that this is a building off point. It's a starting off point where you're going to be using this and modifying it slightly. And I'll show you how that works. So I've installed some of these components in my org. So let's take one of them for a spin. So for example, this quick contact that I've created with a Lightning Data Service, or LDS. And this is doing client-side validation. So first name is a required field. And I need to, you know what? I'm just not going to type any data in. And watch what happens. It says, hey, you need to complete this field. I didn't even submit this data. How about the phone field? And I just type in some letters. We know that's obviously not a valid phone number. And there you go. When I switch over, it says, nope, you cannot do that. So you see this. I've done this without hitting save. I hit, without sending this information back to the server. I'm doing validation right on the client side. So again, this is completely available on that GitHub repo. So another one that I'm going to show you is something we've created on opportunities where we're doing confirmation dialogue. So here we've got this amount to 300. We want to convert this to a pro bono opportunity. Again, some very common use case with JavaScript buttons where you show an alert dialog, and based on the choice of that alert, some action happens. So here we want to go ahead and say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? This alert is asking me. I'm going to say, sure, no problem. I'm going to hit confirm. And notice the nice toast message that came up, and the amount went to 0. The component that we wrote, it looks and fits and belongs in Lightning. And we're using the power of Lightning components, and we're using SLDS to do this. And then just give you a preview of some of the code that you'll be able to get access to. So that component, the pro bono component where I showed you the files in the GitHub repository, you can see that we have put tons of comments in here because we know that that customers of different capabilities and backgrounds are going to come to this. So we comment everything. Almost every line has a comment that tells you what that line does and why you may want to modify it. So when you saw that confirmation dialog, we had 2 buttons, the confirm and cancel. So this is the Lightning button that does the confirmation and cancel. And the confirm hooks up to the convert to pro bono JavaScript function in the controller. So when I go check it out there, you can see this, this function, again, heavily commented. We have a callback that makes sure if something is successful, that we show that toast message. We're using eForce show toast, right? Tools that are available right on the platform. And if there's an error message, it logs it. And here is a SOQL query should you choose to use it in the Apex controller. That's setting the amount to 0. So it's these 3 files that go ahead and make that up. And we're constantly going back and updating these as needed. And as we hear customer feedback, we're going to be adding more and more of these sample components. So now that's for some of the more complicated use cases, some of the more involved use cases. But what about for some of the more simpler use cases around URLs? And as sometimes the community refers to as URL hacks tend to be URLs that have a record ID in them and a field ID, and they've set and they're used to set default values. So let's take a look at some of those. So in my report, I saw a few of these JavaScript buttons, and this tool is perfect for that. What this tool will do, it'll look at the JavaScript code, and for the simpler use cases based on URLs and URL hacks, it'll either convert them to quick actions or custom links and buttons. And in fact, it can even convert some of them to Lightning components. It'll write the code for you. So let me go ahead and show you that. So for example, I've got this one button here, and let me just hit preview. And this button exemplifies some things that we see very commonly with our JavaScript buttons. Is not all JavaScript buttons are very, very complicated like I showed you. Oftentimes, there are 1 or 2 lines of JavaScript code that open a URL. So for example, here I've got a Google URL, and I've got the query parameter San Francisco. So when this JavaScript button is run, it opens Google and searches for results based on San Francisco. Of course, you can modify this to your needs, but you get the idea. So I have a couple options here: convert, convert, and deploy. So what convert will do is it'll go ahead and convert this, as this dialog says, to a custom button or link. So we've parsed this JavaScript code and decided that the best way to convert this is to a custom button or link. So convert will just go ahead and convert it to this. But convert and deploy, what it'll do is not only convert it to a custom button or link, but also add it to the layout. That goes ahead and saves you the extra step. But we wanted to give you the flexibility to choose either path. So for this demo, I'm going to go ahead and hit convert and deploy. And some pretty cool stuff is happening here. We are looking at the JavaScript code. We're parsing that JavaScript code. And you can imagine parsing JavaScript code, for those of you familiar with JavaScript, is a little bit of a challenging task. The JavaScript code can appear in many different formats. You can have concatenation. It can be pulling from other libraries. A number of different things can be happening. And what we're doing is we look at that JavaScript code and decide the best alternative and the best conversion. So here we finished converting. We finished deploying that button. So here you get that deploy, deploy a confirmation dialog. So let's go ahead and close that. Another JavaScript button I have is called Red Account, and this is what we call a typical example of a URL hack. So when we look at this, some of you may recognize this. What it's doing, it's got a record ID, it's editing that record. Here's the field ID, and setting that field to a default value called Red Account. And the great thing about this tool and the power of this tool is it's able to look at this and say, you know what, the best decision I can do for converting this over is actually writing a Lightning component. And this is all the code that it outputs for you automatically. Look at that. So it's outputting the component code and the JavaScript controller code, writing it automatically. So let's go ahead and convert and deploy. And this will take a couple of seconds as well. And again, what this is doing, very complicated. Behind the scenes, we have a library of the most common JavaScript use cases, and we are able to parse each of those and say the best fit for each of these options is either to go to a button link or to a Lightning component. In this case, it was a Lightning component, or a quick action automatically. So let's jump back to the demo here and now go back to my org. If all goes well and demo gods are nice to me this morning, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my screen here, and I should see 2 extra buttons, the Google and Red Account. I hit the Google button, which was, as you saw, converted to a button link or button link, and I open up google.com and notice that it even preserved my query and the search criteria. Of course, it supports much more complicated URL conversions, and also our lastly URL hack, which again tends to be the most common use case across those 2 million JavaScript buttons when we see how they're used. So here is the custom field and that value read account. And notice what it did here. That field ID, it behind the scenes mapped it to the actual custom field. It did that logic, it did that intelligence check there. And there you have it. This is something that we're very excited about. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a great benefit to get this out. Again, it's going live tomorrow. So a few other things in the slides that I want to wrap up with, before finishing up. So once you've gone to Lightning, we also offer some tools to help you take advantage of Lightning and stay productive in Lightning. So one of them is it's better in Lightning prompts. So when you're in Classic, in certain situations, for example, on dashboards, you'll see a it's better in Lightning panel. And when you switch over to Lightning, you'll see the optimized view, the more productive view, and in fact, even a video that gives an introduction, because we know that this may be the first time somebody's jumping into Lightning. So we've taken that extra step to by using a video to introduce the users to Lightning. And this is completely configurable by the admin. So in setup, we have the ability to define these on calendar, tasks, or dashboards. You can switch them on and off exactly how you need it. In addition to that, we also have a feature for auto switching back to Lightning. So if you have users that are constantly switching back to Classic, we have the ability to switch them back on a daily or weekly basis. Again, this is controllable by you, by the admin, in our setup. And once that auto switch happens, again, we know that this may be the first time somebody's coming into Lightning, so we have a welcome mat that allows the users to get introduced to Lightning and take full advantage of Lightning. And lastly, once you've got the users to Lightning, we have the Lightning usage adoption application, and this will give you really great metrics about which users are using Lightning, how often they're using it, what are the most visited pages, what browser types. Then you can sort of go ahead and tap somebody who's consistently switching back to Lightning, tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, can I help you? Is there some sort of training that I need to give? So we're giving you tools not only to switch to Lightning, but to take advantage of Lightning once you're there, and once you're there, to make consistently use Lightning to improve your productivity. So that's what I have for you guys today. So I'd love to hear any questions we have, Elna, or any comments out there.
Oh boy, you're keeping me busy out there, and
right.
People are so blown away that it took them a while to get to start asking questions because they were just reacting and freaking out and mind blown everywhere. Especially Cheryl, she's really freaking out. Hi, Cheryl, one of our favorite MVPs. She's saying, Lightning experience, configuration, convert us. Say what? Holy bleep. Convert and deploy URL hacks. A big hit with her on that. And she also says, she confesses, I should say, that about half of the 2 million JavaScript buttons are in her org. So she's got a lot of work to do. So she's really happy about the converter. Preg also identifies with Cheryl. He's got a number of JavaScript buttons and also says validation on the client side. Wow. Squire blew our minds. Vin, you blew our minds at TDX when you mentioned configuration converter, and you just did it again. He says, it's not magic. It's Lightning Experience Configuration Converter. I kind of like that. I think we should use that. We should steal it.
Yeah.
That was Daniel, actually. And then Cheryl says, she finally came around to asking a question after she was freaking out for a while. Does the client-side validation on components using LDS also work in mobile and Lightning Out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the GitHub repository components that we released are optimized for mobile. So we went in and make sure that they look nice on mobile. So definitely do take it for a spin on mobile. So good to go.
Awesome. So AJ's asking, when are these coming? The related list buttons, the quick actions on the related list, and quick actions with standard page layouts. Is that part of summer 18?
No, so quick actions on lists is available. What is not available yet is Lightning component actions. So that's something that is on the actions roadmap that's going to be coming, and we know that that's one of the most common areas where we see JavaScript buttons, so that's something that we're aware of and definitely working on.
All right, and then Carol's asking, regarding converting hacks, can a declarative admin who built some button hacks that populate fields use this?
Sorry, repeat the question again.
The converting hacks, I guess they're converting URL hacks into actions. Can a declarative admin who built some button hacks, you know, with the URL, can they use this to do that, or do you need a developer?
No, you definitely don't need a developer. Again, it depends on the complexity of the URL hack and the JavaScript button that you're trying to convert. This tool, when possible, tries to optimize for the declarative use case. So we look at the JavaScript code and say, hey, you know what? If we have a declarative alternative, such as a quick action with a predefined value, or as you saw in the first button that I converted, which was a link, we're going to prefer the declarative option. If we're not able to solve it with a declarative option, then we go down to the programmatic option. But even then, you saw that the button the Lightning component that I converted, you know, it's not like the GitHub repo where you have to get the component and modify it to your needs. The button that we converted automatically has the code and automatically tries to mimic what the original URL did. So no, you don't need a developer to use the Lightning Experience Configuration Converter. And that's one of our goals.
That's awesome.
That's great news.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elna. Keep the questions coming, and let's move on to Jason, who's going to talk to us about Flow.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Vin. You know, one of the great things about this Lightning adoption is that you can actually leverage it to go ahead and do more Lightning flows. And I'd like to get started with that and, you know, start out with a big shout out to all of our Flow HANA out there. Thank you for using flows. Thank you for continuing using flows. And we have a lot of exciting stuff for you in our Summer 18 release. So let's jump right on in. Let's take a look at this first slide here. I'm going to give you a couple of demos, just kind of demoing the type of features that we have in Summer 18. For my first demo here, we're going to be talking about our visual engagement features. The things to look for in this particular demo are our stage enhancements. We have 8 new list operators. That makes the stage insertions and stage manipulation really easy. We also have an enhancement to our paused interviews, which allow you to actually show the stage that an interview is paused at, so that way you know where it is when you want to go ahead and resume it. Another thing to look for is our action list component. You may have heard about this yesterday in the Service Cloud RRL. This is actually a platform component that's been published, so you don't have to use it for customer engagement scenarios. You can actually use it anytime you need to go ahead and manage and initiate different flows from the component. One of the things that you can see in the action list component are pin flows, which are basically start points associated with that particular record ID, so you go ahead and launch flows as you bring it up. Another thing that we added as part of support for the action list component as part of the GA is actually stages support. So again, now that you have stages inside, say, a flow, you can also see them inside the flow in the action list component. For this particular demo, I'm going to be Eric Ware, which is a customer service agent working for Brightbank. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the demo here. So as you can see here on my screen, I have an action list component over here. As I mentioned, all you have to do is click on one of these flows. These are the flows available in the org to go ahead and initiate it. Or you can have a pin flow that's actually already been associated with that particular record ID. In this case, it would be a contact ID, which is Lauren Boyle. It doesn't have to be a contact. It's actually any sort of record that you'd actually want associated with that flow. A couple things to point out. Here's the flow that we're actually running. And again, as I mentioned, the stages. So we have 4 stages here. Pay attention to these stages as I go through the flow. Note that they're also shown here on the left-hand side. This is an example of our visual engagement type of flow. You have embedded Lightning components, such as a script component here. You have dynamic questions that allow you to really create that visually engaging experience for the user. As I move through this flow, I have a date component, for example, that I can see here. Please note that you have this sort of stages component that shows you what stage you are in the flow. We get to this point in the flow and things get a little bit interesting. It's actually decided that we needed to branch. Why do we need to branch? Well, Lauren Boyle is actually from Lowell, Massachusetts, and in Lowell, you actually need to read a mandatory disclosure to her in order to go ahead and close her credit card account. One of the interesting things that we have here is that it actually passed her address information into a component that has an embedded Google Map. So you can actually show her address here on the Google Map. And while we did that, we inserted this disclosure stage into the stages as we move along. So let's go ahead and read out that disclosure. This is a local action component that basically opens a web URL. In this case, it's a knowledge-based article. So you can see here that we read this disclosure out to Lauren, and it launches it in a separate tab in the console here. So if we go back to the actual flow itself, we have our stages, and we keep moving. And now we actually inserted another stage here to go ahead and select your account and pick which account that you actually want to close. So in this case, she wants to close her smart credit card. We select that from the data table here. And one of the things about the smart credit card is you actually need to do a verification in order for the account to actually be closed. So we're doing a last 4 SSN verification, and that's basically talking to a local web service to go ahead and do the verification there. Note that in the stages, we went ahead and inserted a stage because, again, we had to branch to do the verification, and they show up in both locations. So let's go ahead and do that. While it's thinking about that, I'm going to show you our operators, the assignment operators that we have. As you can see here, this is how I've been manipulating the stages as we walk through the flow. Here are the 8 new assignment operators that you can use. They're very powerful. I won't go through all of them, but have a look and see all the different ways that you can actually manipulate your lists and, in this case, your stages. So we went ahead and completed our processing, the SSN matches. This is also a browser toast that we can actually provide, similar to the one that Vin demoed just recently. And that's basically it for our first demo. Let's go ahead and switch back to the slides. So the second demo that I want to talk to you about today is a demo that really showcases our flow building and orchestration features for the Summer 18 release. A couple things to look for in this particular demo. You have new actions and components. Local actions, much of which you've seen in the initial demo, and you'll be seeing even richer local actions in the demo I'm about to show you, generally available in Summer of 18. One of the cool things that we also have available for Summer of 18 is a component, sample component that allows you to control flow finish behavior via new navigation actions. So basically, we get a lot of requests of, what happens after I finish a flow, where can I go? And I'll be demoing you an example of how you can actually have the flow complete and then head over to the record page itself. The other thing to look for, which I think will be quite obvious and something I personally take a lot of pride in we finally got to deliver, is our flow debugger. We've had a lot of requests, of course, to be able to walk through flows, and our debugger actually allows you to observe all the intermediate values that actually occur at each of the flow steps to easily debug, what is going on with your flow. And in point of fact, you can actually specify the flow inputs that you need to have in running that particular flow as well as debugging it. So this is really cool. And in point of fact, I personally used the debugger a number of times to debug the demo that I'm about to show you. So the personas in this particular demo, this is a little more complicated, and this is because we really want to demonstrate what you can do in terms of flow and process orchestration to basically break down more complex processes into finite elements that you can then orchestrate as you go through your business process. So there's 3 personas in this particular demo. The first is Saramonte Motors. That's going to be a dealer actually accessing a dealer community portal or partner portal if you so choose. And then we have Eric Ware, who is going to be the Electron Motors distribution persona. And the dealer is basically going to be placing an order for parts. And that order for parts needs to go ahead and be placed by Eric Ware as part of Electron Motors. And then finally, the supplier will be fulfilling that order. In this case, we have the brake supplier that's going to be fulfilling the order. And in this demo, we are working with the company Electron Motors, something you guys might probably be familiar with. All right, let's jump right in. So here we are at the Electron Motors dealer portal. In this case, I want to create a repair request, and this is a flow. It may not look like a lot of the flows you've seen, but it really is a great example of the kind of visual experiences that you can create now with Lightning Flow. In this particular case, I need to go ahead and fix the brakes, so I go ahead and select the wheels area. As you can see here, we pick the manufacturer and the model of the car that we have. We can go ahead and skip the insurance company for now. And basically, it goes ahead and it'll narrow down the list based on the selection that I made of the particular section of the car to the type of repairs that we would want to make. In this case, we want to do a brake replacement, and we go ahead and select the brakes there, and we generate the repair request. All right, so we created a repair request. Now, this is not a particularly good-looking screen, and there's a reason for that. First of all, it does have the make and model that we have, and I'm going to be showing you the flow finish behavior. That's that button right here, because we'll go ahead and be able to jump over the repair request. But there are 2 pieces of information that I inserted into the flow. The first is the record ID of the repair request, and the second is the record ID of the repair procedure. And I did this because this is giving you an example of probably what your life was like before you had something like a flow debugger. You had to actually figure out what the flow was doing, and you would go ahead and put these little text outputs to tell you, oh, where is it, what is it done, so that way I can go ahead and follow up on what the flow actually did. So I'll get to the flow debugger in a minute, but before we do that, let's go ahead and see what the flow finish behavior looks like. By clicking on this button, I can immediately go to the repair request page right here and show you where it is, and then therefore you can do more work from this particular repair request page. But I'm sure you're all dying to see the flow debugger, so let's go ahead and hop over and take a look at that. This is the exact same flow that I just ran in the community dealer portal page. If I go to debug, I get to input the different inputs that I want. We don't need to in this particular case, but it gives you that option. And here you can see that the flow itself is actually running on the left-hand side over here. If I look on the right, I have the debug details. So watch as I click to what happens here. First, I go ahead and select the wheels yet again, and then I generate this screen. It actually shows the screen that I have, the different Lightning components that I'm actually leveraging, the fast lookup that I did. When I go ahead and fill out the information, much the same as I did before, we can go ahead and jump through here, and then I have the repair request and the repair procedure. And if I look up here, I have the similar repair request and the repair procedures showing up in the debugger. So I don't need to do this anymore. I can go ahead and see my debugger, get all the information I need. Pretty powerful stuff. All right, so that's our flow debugger. Let's go ahead and jump back into the demo. So I'm Eric Ware. I've gotten the dealer repair request, and it's actually shown up in my chatter feed. Just reload to this. So in the chatter feed here, we have the repair request, brake replacement, X23 front to Bailey brake replacement. I can go ahead and click on this particular repair request, and now I'm looking at the repair procedures, and I have three parts that I need to order as part of this repair procedure. So this is actually a flow, again, embedded in this particular page. I can go ahead and click on this, break this item here, and I go to the repair part page. Note that on this page, the order has not been placed yet, so I don't have any information yet. But what I do have is our MBA recommendation component over here. So our MBA recommendations are actually in pilot for summer of 18, and you can see some of the power of what you can do with it here. Basically, we're looking to order brake discs. In this particular case, the NBA recommendation is telling us that we should be purchasing our brake discs from Brembo because we are currently getting advantageous pricing and shipping arrangements from this company. So when I go ahead and click on this particular button here, I actually run a flow in the background to go ahead and order those discs from Brembo. And as you can see here, the part status is now ordered. I have the part number and the unit price. Let's jump back and go ahead and place the other orders that we have. I need some brake fluid in order to do this repair. And in this case, I don't necessarily have an MBA recommendation, but I can actually launch a flow from a quick action in the case of selecting a vendor for this particular order. So I'm going to go ahead and order some mobile oil, fulfill that order, and go back here. Now, one of the things that we're trying to show here is that you actually have a number of different processes that are part of a larger process. I'm actually trying to go ahead and do a repair procedure, but I need to produce multiple part orders. So each one of these part orders is in itself its own flow. And when I go ahead and place all of these different orders, I'm now contacting the vendor one at a time with an external services call to say I need to order the brake discs, I need to order the brake fluid, and I'm going to place an order for the brake rotors. So if I go ahead and refresh the page here, you can see that all three parts have been ordered. So that's great. Now I have three parts ordered, and I need to go ahead and fulfill those. So let's hop on over. This is a very simple page, but we'll make this part a little bit quicker. I have three orders. I am now the brake supplier, and I want to go ahead and fulfill those orders. And the way I fulfill those orders is I do them one at a time, and each one of these orders that I fulfill will actually be generating a platform event. And that platform event will actually trigger a process builder process to point to the fact that the order has been fulfilled. And only when all three orders have actually been fulfilled can I actually move on and complete the repair procedure. Because it makes sense, I can't actually do anything if I don't have all the parts that I need. So in this case, I'm going ahead and fulfilling all the parts, and the dealer has been notified electronically. And let's go back and take a look. If I refresh this, I can see that the part status is now fulfilled for all 3 orders. If I go down here, once all 3 orders are actually fulfilled, the process builder process actually generated a chatter post that basically said all parts have been fulfilled. The dealer should receive the shipment shortly. What does that kind of look like on the back end? Well, if I go here, you can see this process builder process, and essentially whenever I get the platform event that the part is fulfilled on the repair part object, then I can go ahead and set it as fulfilled. Once all 3 have actually been fulfilled, go ahead and continue the process to actually do the repair. So that's some pretty cool stuff, and that's our second demo. Let's move back to the slides and talk a little bit about our third demo here. The third area that we made a lot of feature improvements for summer of 18 is around error management. Some of the things to look for in this particular area of approved error management is the ability for end users to see their validation arrows. That's actually going to be part of the demo I'll show you in a second here. The other items I don't actually have a demo for in this particular case, but I'll tell you a little bit about them. We actually can manage government limits with improved log information. So we have a lot of questions around, well, if I run a process, how many transactions do I have against my limits? In the debug log now, you can actually see the number of transactions going against your limits. So that's really powerful when you're actually out there building your flows. Another thing that you can now have is the ability to configure error email recipients. So it's not just the creator of the flow that actually is the one that receives the email. Obviously, not everybody sticks around all the time. Some people change jobs, etc. So you want to be able to have different email recipients. And in this case, you actually are leveraging the Apex distribution lists. Any users in those particular distribution lists can then be leveraged to receive the email. In the slide here, I basically show it as the email address that you see in the red box there. The last thing is that we actually added the org ID to the flow error emails, kind of an acknowledgement that not everybody has only one environment. And in fact, you want to know where those flow emails are actually coming from. In this particular demo, the persona is basically admins everywhere because we've received this request from pretty much everywhere. And so let's take a look. This is probably the most exciting thing we have for summer of 18. I have here a new lead that I filled out, and it's going to violate a validation rule, and so we're going to show a validation error. So when I go to save the new lead here, it's considering whether or not it wants to violate the validation rule.
I'm sure it's coming.
And it decided it is indeed going to violate the validation rule. So 3 things about this new error message that you can see here on the screen. First is we actually now give you the process name, so that way it's really easy to trace back which process actually failed in this case. Second thing is that we actually provide, if we have it, the error message associated with the failure. So in this case, we have a validation exception. Opportunities with this lead source are not permitted for Q1. And then the third thing that the error message now provides is the error ID. Now, this may look a little bit cryptic, but the reason is that it comes after the point that you should go ahead and show this to your admin in case you're having any issues. And the admin can go ahead and take that and immediately type it in and do a quick search to find where the actual error occurred. So it's a really good way of doing a fast, quick match to really speed up your troubleshooting. So that covers all the major points and demos that I have for summer feature list out of Lightning Flow. Let's go back to the slides here. In much the same vein as the error messaging for Process Builder, we closed a lot of idea points in this particular release, over 43,000 points delivered on behalf of the Flow teams. So please go have a look at all these different points. We really hear the customer feedback, and we're doing our best to go ahead and resolve any of the issues that come up for you guys. On a final note, I actually want to point out that as I showed you in the demo, our Einstein Next Best Action is currently in pilot. So you should go ahead and join the pilot. If you'd like, please contact your account executive to join our Next Best Action pilot. This gives you the power to offer the best offer to your customers based on the data that you have, as well as potentially tell you, in the case of the demo that I showed you, the best action to take for your employees that are actually walking through their flows. For all this and more, please go to the URL that's at the bottom of the screen right here. And that's our new Lightning Dev Center, Lightning Flow Dev Center that we actually launched at Trailhead DX. And it has a lot of great information, so definitely check it out. It has a lot of videos, demos, sample components, everything you need to build all these really engaging visual experiences with Lightning Flow.
Excellent, Jason. Thank you. That was fantastic. So many exciting new features with Lightning Flow. So what do you think, Elna? What are we hearing out there?
What do I think? I think that all the Flownatics out there are really excited about Summer 18, and in particular, we have Cheryl, Randy, and Squire. Jason, you're a big hit. You're officially awesome. And so Michelle says navigation actions for Flow Finish and Debugger. Thank you, thank you, thank you. 3 times thank you. Squire says, who needs Flow Debugger? Doesn't everyone get it right the first time? Well, Michelle says, this Flow demo is really fascinating, but are there any resources on Trailhead or somewhere where that will teach us how to set these up? She says, my flows don't look very pretty today.
You know, that's a great question. We actually do have a number of Trailhead resources. If you've looked at them before, I highly recommend that you go back and look at them again. Around the Trailhead DX time, we published some additional ones. There's some great process automation trailheads out there. There's a process automation super badge you should take a look at. And in point of fact, you know, it gets a little bit complicated, we understand, with all these different ways that you can use Flow, which is part of the power of using the Lightning platform. And so we actually have a trailhead on, you know, where and when should you use a flow and how to call it. And if you do have questions about how to do something like that, I definitely recommend taking a look at that.
Yeah, Brittany also mentioned she was sometimes struggling with learning how to use Flow, and she did some of the trailhead and just would like more examples, and maybe she needs to revisit to see if there's more out there. Or is there a place to get sample flows? Are there packages that people could download?
That's actually a really good question as well. Like I said, you know, we are looking to do even more trailheads to help you build all this out. We understand that these visually engaging experiences are really awesome, and you want to be able to build those out. We do actually have an unofficial website called lightningflow.net. You can go ahead and check that out for some sample code in order to leverage these Lightning components and other pieces to sort of, you know, bootstrap your initial implementation.
All right, a question from Cheryl. Will the Flow debugger work automatically on existing flows, or do we have to do something to make it work?
That's a good question as well. You don't actually have to do anything. It's going to show up basically whenever you're in the Cloud4 Designer, and then all you have to do is click on debug to go ahead and run it against that flow.
Awesome. Mark is wondering, would you characterize the debugger as providing the ability to step through a flow?
Yes, I would say so. It's going to go through each one of the screens and the nodes that basically are associated with it.
Right. And then Christopher's asking, he says, Flow debugger looks really helpful. Is this debug log on the right available for the process builder error email messages as well?
That's actually a very good question. It's the Flow debugger is primarily used for flows that you can actually open up inside the Cloud4 Designer. When you get a Flow error email, you're actually getting the same sort of information that you would in the debugger, just in the context of the error itself.
Okay. And Rick is asking, is this Lightning only, or does it work in the classic version of Flow, or in Flow in Classic?
Is it the debugger? The debugger.
Yeah.
So basically, the debugger will work in Cloud4 Designer, but you actually do need to be running in Lightning mode to see the full screen debug information. However, you can run with inputs if it's in Classic.
A couple folks are asking for that Dev Center link again, so we will post that in the community if it's not already there, so look for it in the community feed. And if you tweeted about it, we'll also respond with that link later today. So a lot of interest in that.
And now we have some awesome, exciting features to share with you around surveys. So Matt, take it away.
All right, hi guys. So just to talk a little bit about surveys, let me just talk a little bit about what we did for this new release over here for Salesforce Surveys. As you guys are probably well aware, Salesforce Surveys was released in the previous release, and what we decided to do as one of our goals was to make this a easy-to-use product, as well as a product that would be tightly integrated into our platform. So in the summer release, what we have for you guys is the ability to expose all our Salesforce-related objects on the process builder, and the next thing that we did was also to provide a survey-type functionality, which is to be able to have question logic, so that gives you the ability to skip a certain question based on a previous response. And one of the next features that we have is to be able to copy an existing survey and have a brand new survey. So instead of me talking to all these different parts, let me go ahead and show a demo view of this different features. So can we switch over to the demo now? All right, so I'm logged into a Service Cloud environment over here. So the two sort of use cases I'm going to show today is one, what we were going to do from a business process perspective, as well as what we would do from a survey creator perspective. So I'm going to go ahead and start from this customer sat survey that I currently have as part of my list view. And let me click into that. And let me open the survey builder experience over here. So the first thing I'm going to show you is to be able to copy this existing survey. So I'm going to click on Make a Copy, create a new survey called essentially what it did, it created a new copy from that previous existing survey. So what I'm going to do as part of this is to add a new question. So I'm going to add a question called a text question here. So tell me more. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this to and place it at a certain location. And what I'm going to show next is what we call the question logic. So it's denoted by this little icon over here. So I'm going to click on that and say, were you able to resolve the issue? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a condition over here to navigate the user or skip the question and go to this new question I just created over here. Save. So I'm going to click this Create a Logic Rule. All right, so what I want to do to kind of test out this logic is to be able to save the survey first and preview will walk me through the logic that I just created. So in this case, I'm going to click New, and it's going to ask you, were you able to resolve the issue? And I would say yes. And as you sort of noticed earlier, that what I had to do was point it to a target, and that target would have been that new question I just created. Click the Next button over here. And you see, it took me to this Rate Your Experience rating question. So going back, if I change the answer to no, it would essentially take me to this new question that I just recently created. So this is an example of the many different types of conditions that you can actually add as part of that survey question logic. All right, so those are the two features that we currently released in the summer release. The next I'm going to show you is a simple use case for when you can actually embed your own custom business process and using surveys as an example of that. So the use case I'm going to go to here is I'm going to go to a handy dandy Laura Boyle contact. And part of this is to be able to create a custom business process to where I can create a new case. And when the case closes, to be able to send that survey out to Miss Laura over here. So I'm going to click New. Assuming I've closed this case, put some required fields over here. Click the Save button. And there's a process builder flow that's happening in the back end that's actually creating a survey invitation from this case. So I'm going to refresh the screen over here. And what you can see over here is that my process builder process essentially create a new survey invitation. So let me, for simplicity of this, for the demo here, I'm just going to copy the URL and I'm going to assume that I am Miss Laura taking this survey. So I'm just open a new tab. And you can do this through multiple different ways. You can send out an email, which the participant on the other side can essentially click on that email and navigate back to the actual survey. Or you can actually use another process builder process to actually send out the survey. You click the Next button over here. We're able to resolve this issue. Let's just say I say yes. And I get to this rating question. And I also have a process builder process that I built previously to be able to create some follow-up actions based on the rating that this person had put in. So I'm going to just say the experience in this situation was less than stellar. So I would set this to a 2 rating, and I will complete the survey. And so now the survey is completed, but like I was saying earlier, I actually had an extra step in there to where when the question was less than a certain rating, it would essentially create a follow-up task related to that case. So let me go back to the actual case and refresh. You'll see that a new task was created based off of that response that Laura had entered. So that is an example of the power of using Process Builder to be able to create custom business process based on your survey response. The other thing I would like to show you too is if I navigate here back to Laura, you can actually see that there's actually a survey invitation related list associated to that record. So this is an example of the power of the platform to be able to relate a survey to in this case, a contact. Let me just summarize what you just saw in the demo. So as I was saying earlier, we expose all the survey and survey-related objects as part of the Process Builder process. And so now you can create your own custom business process with surveys. The next thing we did as well is to be able to expose the survey invitations related list as part of your contact record. And then also to be able to create conditional questions and responses, and also to skip a question based on the responses that was given for that particular question type, and to be able to preview your question and logic conditions. So next, just to give you guys a little bit of a preview in terms of what we're thinking about for surveys that's coming up in our next couple of releases, we like to think about it in these three different categories. One is to be able to have new question types. So we'll continue to add additional question types as we release new versions of the survey product. An example of that could be either scoring, stack ranking, slider, or type ahead pick list. The next thing that we kind of think about is also in terms of survey features. An example of a survey feature is to be able to pause and resume a survey. So what that means is that you could pause a survey and then come back to it later and start off from when you last paused. The other survey features that we have is the ability to do multiple questions on a certain page. That's something that we don't have today, but we will have that in an upcoming release. And then the last one is to be able to integrate the platform features into the survey product. As the survey product continues to mature and then grow, we certainly would like to take advantage of the available features that are available on our platform. So back to you, Elmo.
Boy, the survey tool is really shaping up to be very powerful. I'm looking at the roadmap and thinking there's lots of use cases there and lots of great features coming. So thank you for sharing that. And also it's great that this is native, it's integrated with Salesforce, so you don't have to worry about mapping, it's all there. And then we have also shout out saying, can't wait to start using surveys to get user feedback and measure SLAs. That's a great use case because he says we can't sabois. Does anyone know what sabois means? It means Salesforce administration by walking around. You can't do that for everybody. So the surveys are great, especially with a large user base. Christopher says, I'm drooling over Salesforce surveys. It's only getting better. The product, not my drooling, with this release. However, doesn't this require a feature license? Is it an add-on? How do we get it?
It is an add-on license, and I would contact your sales representative or account executive, and they should be able to work with you on the licensing part of it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned when we were talking before that you only need licenses for people who create the survey, not people who respond. Right?
That is correct.
Right.
We would only the licenses only apply to a survey creator, and we don't. And you can take unlimited amount of surveys.
Now, Carol would really like to play around with surveys and kind of do some testing. And she's wondering, is this available in a sandbox, or is there a way that you can kind of test it out before you actually commit to it? And also, is it Lightning only, or does it also work in Classic?
So it actually works in both Lightning and Aloha. So to answer the question, where can you see it, where can you play with it? Each environment, all your Salesforce orgs should come with one free survey record included, so you can certainly take it for a test drive.
One more question. This is from Carlos. Can you associate surveys with any object or just certain ones?
So right now, we only have the ability to relate a survey to a contact or a person, only for a contact at this point, but you can also create your own custom objects. You can also create your own custom fields off the survey invitation to relate that to many different entities. But what's coming up, as you can see from the roadmap over here, is that we will have the ability to relate surveys to multiple entities. That would be something that we will have in an upcoming release.
Great. New question just came in from Brittany. Can we run reports on surveys based on user responses?
Yes, you can. So surveys is available through custom report types. So you can easily create your own custom reports to show whatever responses that are coming in from your survey.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the questions we have at the moment for surveys, but I do have a bunch of questions from the other sections. So Ayuri, could we take a few questions for the rest of the panel?
Yeah. Let's take questions from everyone else.
Let me try to sneak a few of them in, and if we don't get to it, don't worry. We are using our no question left behind policies, so we will be responding in whichever arena you posted your question, whether it be Twitter or in the community. Our product managers will be circling back with you within the next couple of days. So Kristen says, I love the new list features, but I have a question. What about the alphabet bar, that Rolodex bar that you have in Classic? Is that coming to Lightning?
That's a great question. Our goal in the next release is to try to solve most of those use cases with search in lists. We think it's going to be more powerful. However, if that turns out to not be the case, we are more than happy to reconsider the alphabet filter and prioritize that.
Yeah, I could see myself using the alpha filter and searching at the same time, but just saying. Rick and Catherine both asked, will we be able to debug Process Builder similar to Flow? For example, review Process Builder logs in the debug view and step through the Process Builder steps.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for the moment, it's primarily for leveraging Visual Flow inside the Cloudflow Designer that you would actually use the debug for.
Gotcha.
As far as Process Builder goes, again, like I mentioned, when you get the error emails, you do get the same amount of debug information related to that particular process, and you can trace back to the process that you would get to. Part of the, both Process Builder as well as Visual Flow are built in the same flow engine. Some of the challenges we have with actually debugging Process Builder processes has to do with the fact that because it dynamically generates the flow, it can often be kind of difficult to actually step through it in a sort of a way that makes a lot of sense to people.
But you can still capture that information in the debug logs, that's correct?
That's correct. It is actually captured in the debug logs, and so you can get that information there.
Right. Yeah. So going back to Jeff on this one, Marlon said, you show how easy it is to move tabs and personalize your view in Lightning. Does the user need admin access to do this? And does it change the view for everybody else? And how does that exactly work?
Sure, so we mean the view of the navigation tabs, I assume. No, that is all for the end user. That is personal to them, and they don't need to be an admin for that. So as the end user, I can customize my tabs as I want with no impact on anyone else. So it's truly a personal feature.
Yeah, and the only exception is that if an admin has created an app, and correct me if I'm wrong here, keep me honest, and they have added object tabs to that app, the user cannot remove those tabs from the app. They can move them around, but they can't actually delete them from the nav bar. Am I correct on that one?
That's correct, but you could always put them into the overflow menu at the very bottom. So
Gotcha.
you
Right.
can highlight your number 1 through 10 tabs on top.
Got it. And then Nutty Naughty Nerd is back again. She wants to know, can you turn off the tab rearranging, or can you prevent people from using that?
That's an excellent question, and I will get back to you in the forum.
All
I
right.
don't know right now.
Good. Just tell me when to stop, Ayuri, because otherwise I'm just going to keep going.
Let's go maybe 2 more.
Okay. Mark is asking, when you were talking about the Lightning Platform roadmap regarding the record detail form, can you elaborate a little bit more about what you're planning there?
Well, so one of the things that we are looking at in the future is right now the record detail pages are a monolithic block on your Lightning pages. And we want to be able to take those and take your sections and field and be able to treat them like components and be able to place those anywhere on the page. So you're able to break up that monolithic record detail page into multiple blocks, and thereby also introducing the ability to conditionally show and hide those sections and fields based on formulas like we already have today. So bringing that dynamic visibility feature right for fields and field sections. So that's where we're looking. Keep an eye out for that. It's a little bit of ways off, but we've started some groundwork and plumbing for that.
That's excellent. Thank you. Elma, anything you want to say in closing? We're just about ready to wrap up.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for all the shout outs and all the questions. Keep them coming. We love your questions. We also love your feedback. Thank you, Christopher, for the feedback. We're going to direct our product managers to respond to that. But also remember, if you do have suggestions for features or you like to see that alpha bar, for example, make sure you go to the ideas exchange. Create an idea, vote on an idea. You can even go in the community and say, hey, everybody, here's an idea that I think should really get more votes. And go ahead and do that in the community. But we hope to continue the conversation there. And hopefully you'll come back tomorrow for Community Cloud. We'd love to see you. We have more awesome stuff to show you. We've got other things coming up, webinars. You'll find posts for that in the community as well. We'll be doing some deeper dives into specific clouds and features. So just keep coming back to us for more, and we love to share and hear your questions. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Elma. And thank you so much to our product managers answering all those questions. And we know you're going to be out in there in the Trailhead community answering them all there as well. And to all of our Trailblazers, I want to thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to see what you build, what you turn all these new features into. So please share them with us. And this broadcast has been recorded. So if you loved what you saw, please share it with your friends. You can rewatch it as much as you like. And we love your feedback. So please take the survey. Let us know how we're doing, how we can continue to serve you even better through the survey. Additionally, as Elma mentioned, we will be back tomorrow to cover the amazing community's capabilities for Summer 18. So please join us then. And with that, we'll see you tomorrow.